And we are live. Hello, hello. Welcome. Oh, Seth, can you mute yourself there, please? I don't know why there's feedback. Oh, I think I might be watching myself from somewhere. Hello? Okay, I think that's it. I was watching myself from somewhere. I'm going to go live on Instagram. We are talking boundaries. That's not the thing that I need to do. We're talking boundaries, your portals to power, with a fellow Club She Is member, which we absolutely love. I'm just going to go live on Instagram here. And then just give it a moment for comments to show up. If you are in the room with us, please do let me know. Hello, hello. We are live. So I'm currently on Instagram on my cell phone because I can't stream from there, but we are also live on Facebook. We are live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We are live on LinkedIn. And so if you are catching me on Instagram, please do join one of our other platforms if you want to see Saf. I'll try and put the camera like so that to show you. But this is my first lunch and learn for the year, which is quite cool. I will be here by myself, but Seth is going to be doing an awesome presentation for the benefit of the replay. So if you are catching the replay, please do let us know where you are watching from, and comment on the video like that you're catching behind. And then secondly is that if this is your first time watching Lunch and Learn, please, hi, welcome. We so appreciate having you join us. Coach Malebu, hi, we see you. William, Queen A, Noms, Freedom, Jonathan Boy, we see you. Hello, hello. Welcome. I'm currently on Instagram on my cell phone, which is here. And then we are streaming live on all the other social medias. I'm seeing people join on, what's this one called? YouTube. And then Facebook, we are yet to see people, but that is also okay. We like to usually give it like 5 minutes to join. And so usually Kopana and I will have like a bit of banter, but because she's not here, let's do a banter session with Saf. Saf, I'm going to bring you on the stage. You are going to let us know a little bit about yourself, who it is that you are, how you show up in the world. I was actually having like such a weird time to like because usually people have like titles, like they'll say coach, and I know you don't like to be called coach, and I know you're a consultant, but like it's so complicated. So we're going to find out what that is. We absolutely enjoy the work that Saf does. It's very different from anyone that we've ever experienced, and it has been, like, I will say, Saf, like out of everyone, like learning about your business has been really like for my mind, I've always been like, okay, all right, this is what it is. Because it's sort of similar to like industrial psychology, sort of somewhere, somehow, but very gentle in that it has like a very feminine energy towards it. So I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about how we can learn from you, but how we can learn about the work that you do. So I'm going to add Saf and introduce you. Sapia, hello.
Yeah, okay. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. We were talking offline now about how you had a good restful break.
Yeah.
Family time, or did you get rid of your family? Because sometimes that's like a two-way thing. Like I rested because I had my family, or I rested because my family I sent them away.
It was weird. It was weird. I have these two teenagers, and one decided to just jump onto a plane and go to Cape Town spontaneously by himself, which was new for a mom. And then the other one came home one day and she said, I've got a job. And I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't ready.
Yay! Because you're an adult now. That's
It's
great.
different. Yeah.
I love it for you. I love it for you. So it was restful because you didn't have a family. That's like,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's restful because you are, for me, it was restful because I was really just following my body. So I didn't wake up because it was a particular time of the day, and I didn't go and sleep because it was a particular time of the day, which is very confusing for me right now, by the way. I'm still not sure where I am. But I was literally just following what was needed by me and like how I wanted to go about the day. And like no rules. 3 weeks of no rules.
I love that. I love that. I think there was a day my husband and I woke up at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We were like, this is interesting. This is very, very interesting because
Yeah.
like the whole world is like, you look outside and there's like actual like busy and you're just like, I am still uneaten and unbrushed. So I absolutely like it's a really good like place to be where you're just like, you know what, I'm actually going to rest.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe we will talk a little bit about that. So before we start with your presentation, maybe can you introduce yourself a little bit so that people understand what it is that you do and how you show up in the world and who you help, right? Because you came to Club She Is last year funnel weekend. And I think from then we've had a love relationship with Saf because we've challenged you, you've challenged us. But it's always been like a really cool experience just because of the work that you do. So I'd love for everybody to know a little bit more about that. Yeah.
It is a bit weird for me to, do an elevator pitch type of introduction because I do lots of different things. I follow my interests. There are things that I enjoy doing. So until I met you guys, the core of my work was really in organizations and working with teams. I'm part of a bigger community, and the community is called the Lightwalker Coaching Community. And through the Lightwalker Coaching or consulting space, I get to play in nice, big spaces. And one of the biggest philosophies is about bringing the life force back into the workforce in that space. And that really, really ties into my own philosophies, which is about we get to be human everywhere we go. We get to be ourselves everywhere we go. And I just think it's really unhealthy for us to have all these different personas so that we can just cope and get by. And so at the heart of what I do is I love working with people who are interested in investing in being more connected to themselves so they can be more connected to the others that they are around, and so that they can create ecosystems in which intuition can really come to life, because intuition needs a lot of connection, conversation and dialogue. So I'm very passionate about conversational skills and conversational intelligence and how that works. And the safer we are with ourselves, the better we can show up for others and the more we create the space for others to flourish. In a different capacity, I support coaches to become better coaches. And in a different capacity, I work with professional women who've reached that point in their career where they're asking, is this it? And
I love that.
take them on a journey.
I love that. The intuition part for me is always like, how do you monetize this? That's always like the thing is like, how do you charge people to have conversations? Because obviously, you know us, we're all about the making the Randellas. But what I love about the research that we've had to do, especially while working with you, is that when you identify a problem, even as niche as how you work, what the kind of work that you do, like you will find your people. And I think that's something that is really, it's really special about you specifically and the kind of work that you do. So I'm going to stop talking now and I'm going to put your presentation on the stage, and then I'm going to remove myself, but also mute myself. But I'm going to be here in the background. Yes.
Cool.
Awesome.
So the conversation that we're having today is about boundaries. My understanding is that we're together until about 1:30. What is the guidance, Nyaki? I'm not hearing Nyaki, but I'm going to assume that we're going to be together until about 1:30. So one of the biggest ideas for me is, so correct, cool. One of the biggest ideas for me is that when we're thinking about boundaries, and when we are living a life that feels boundaried, and I'm not talking about unhealthy boundaries, I'm talking about really, really healthy, empowering, enabling, and enlivening boundaries. What really occurs to me is that boundaries really and truly sit at the peak of our emotional intelligence, our ability to be good with ourselves and our ability to be good with others. And so there's a quote by a woman by the name of Prentice Hemphill, and she talks about boundaries as being these instruments that makes it possible for me to feel good and safe and healthy. And boundary, she says, is the distance at which I can love you and me at the same time. And so boundaries are very, very frequently thought of as defensive instruments. But if we shift our perspective on what the real job of boundaries are, then we start to notice and to realize that actually what boundaries do is they help us to protect the thing that is most important to us. And so when I think about my favorite quotes in the world, the one that reminds me about boundaries, the one that reminds me about just what it means to be living well in my own body, then what I start to think about is this quote that says, we sin when we get our lives out of order. And for me, what that means is that when we know what we want, when we know what is important to us, when we know what our priorities are, we are really and truly able to start creating boundaries that allow us to make sure that our priorities remain our priorities and that things that are important don't take the back seat in our lives. And so what boundaries are is really about making sure that what matters to us is at the forefront of our lives. And what boundaries often reflect is our power patterns about what is happening for us at any given moment in time when we are either stepping into our power or we are stepping away from our power. Nyaki, I need a bit of help. Oh, there we go. So before we go any further, I want to, whether you're doing this live here with us right now or whether you're catching the recording, I want to offer you a moment to just slow down a bit and to just catch your breath. This doesn't have to take long, but if you were just in this moment right now, to take a deep breath, to close your eyes, to shut the external world out, and to just put a hand on your body. My advice is always to put a hand on your chest and one hand on your belly and to really feel anchored and connected to yourself. And if you're doing that, just ask yourself, where in your life are you saying yes, but you're feeling a deep unspoken no? And this is very often a reflection of the tension between what our minds do and what our bodies do. And there's a wisdom in our bodies because our minds will be compliant, but our bodies will have deep information for us about whether or not we are stepping into a space of self-betrayal or whether we are in agreement completely with what is being asked of us. If your hand is still on your heart, if your eyes are still closed, if you're still connected to your breath, contemplate what you are tolerating at any area of your life, maybe your work life, maybe your personal life, and notice what it's costing you in your peace, in your energy, and most importantly, like this for me is very important, it's what's it costing for you in your self-respect. And if anything's coming up for you, you're welcome to add it into the comments. And typically when we are talking about boundaries, there's so much information that comes to us from our bodies rather than from our minds. And I want to offer you that boundaries are a really, really radical act of self-love. And to consider for yourself, like what would life be like if you start to really and truly lead with what is most important to you? to start operating from the choices that matter the most to you? How would that shape your life? Kapana, I'm not sure. I'm reading here, oh my word, wouldn't know what to do. Maybe you can give us a bit more information about that. So the question, of course, is what is boundaries? And when Kapana originally spoke to me, she said to me, I must share 3 big ideas. But the biggest idea that I think anyone can offer around boundaries is that boundaries are not ultimatums. Very often we think about boundaries as rules or things that we say to other people that they must do. But this is not what boundaries are. Boundaries are instruments with which you are looking after and you are honoring and you are setting limits to honor your own well-being. What boundaries do is they allow you to live, not just to express it with your words, but to really live and to embody your values and your desires, to make space for what is important to you. And our boundaries are instruments that keep us in integrity with ourselves. And so when we have low and poor boundaries, what very typically happens is that we use boundaries as defense mechanisms, and we use boundaries as something that we might retaliate when we're feeling attacked. And so boundaries are really, really and truly about protecting what is important for us. It's about showing up in a way that says, this is what matters to me, and these are the boundaries, these are the limits that I place. And I want to offer that very often when we speak our boundaries, we're telling other people what to do and what not to do, which unfortunately puts us on the back foot. Because a boundary is always about, what am I going to do when you violate my boundary? There are rules that we set for ourselves. And so we've got to think about what our principles are, what our values are, what is important to us. So we are very much aligned to be able to take the kinds of actions that we say we're going to take when we issue our boundaries, when we determine our boundaries. I'm wondering if that makes sense to everybody. Maybe you can comment. I don't see any comments from where I'm looking. But boundaries are really and truly directions and instructions to ourselves. They are not directions and they are not instructions to other people. They can be directions, but certainly not instructions. Okay. And so we can't be willy-nilly about our boundaries, and we can't think about our boundaries necessarily in the spur of the moment. We've got to really know what matters to us and what action we are willing to take to preserve and to protect and to nurture and care for what matters to us. Okay. I'm not, there we go. I want to share with you a very quick diagram around, or an idea about what happens when we don't have boundaries that are strong and healthy. So when we don't have boundaries, somebody makes a request of us, and what we do is we choose to comply. There's a compulsion that happens somewhere inside of us, and it might be for many, many reasons. And there's this compulsion that really just says, I'm going to do what is being asked of us. It can be a parent, it can be a sibling, it can be a friend, it can be a person in the traffic, it can be anywhere. But we tend very often, because we don't want to be seen as being problematic, we simply comply with what is being requested of us. And this is a big thing in the workplace, where we really have this idea that we don't have the autonomy and we don't have the agency and we don't have the sovereignty to say no or to negotiate in a particular context. So we simply comply. And so although we're doing what is requested of us, there is an internal tension. And that internal tension consumes so much energy. It consumes energy because what it really is doing is your mind is saying, I have to do it, but your body is saying, I don't want to. and your body kicks up and your nervous system kicks up quite a ruckus, and it consumes a lot of energy because it wants to get your attention. And so what we end up doing is we start operating from a place of resistance. And so everything becomes harder. And so procrastination is what happens. We take very long to do things, and we do things from a place where there is a level of passive aggression just somewhere inside of us. And that passive aggressive will start mounting until a point where your inner being starts to say, I don't want to. And then we become defiant. Now, this is a place where I get to very quickly, and I become incredibly rebellious. And this is probably why boundaries are so fascinating to me, because when I am defiant, I actually become quite frightening. Okay? And I don't want to operate in the world in that way. And I'd like you to contemplate, just like for yourself, reflect on what is your pattern around this. And so then what we go to is we go into adapted compliance. And adapted compliance is where we go into a negotiation, but we're not negotiating with the other person. We're negotiating with ourselves. We start adapting our own stories so we continue doing what we're doing and we don't fall out of favor with the other people, but we find a way to cope and to feel better about the fact that we are doing something we really, really don't want to be doing. And so many of us go through this over and over and over. And what I want to offer is that this is a way in which we step into a loop of trauma, because what we are doing is we are violating our values, we are violating our priorities, and we are really losing integrity with ourselves. And if this is something that resonates with you, I really want to offer that you take a screenshot of this and start tracing what is your behavioral pattern in terms of how you relate to other people. Okay? So as I said before, boundaries are not rules for other people. They are really and truly instructions to yourself. Now, what many people fear is that boundaries are selfish, or they're going to be perceived as being rude, or they're going to be seen as though they are being defensive or anything, unpleasant. But really what boundaries are, they're just looking after what matters to you. I want to offer that boundaries are really and truly not a skill issue. Now, I'm not suggesting that you don't have to develop skills to have better boundaries. But for instance, if I come along and say to you, here's a script for boundaries, if you don't have the internal scaffolding to hold that script in play while you are practicing your boundaries with other people, the script's not going to help you. And so boundaries are not a script issue or skill issue. They are really and truly a personal power issue. And personal power is really, really important, especially for the people who live or operate in the Club She Is environment. I would imagine that everyone in the Club She Is environment is someone who has got a big goal in front of her. And when we're talking about achieving big goals, we're talking about having a vision for ourselves, and not a vision simply of what we want to achieve, but a vision of who we are, how we show up in the world, who we become over time. And second to achieving important things, in addition to a vision, is we have to have our own sovereignty. And boundaries are a big part of our sovereignty. And personal power, personal authority, this is what we're talking about when we're talking about our own sovereignty. I'm very confused right now. Okay, there we go. I've lost my slides. So when we are talking about our sovereignty, we are really talking about, in the context of our boundaries, our patterns of power. And every single time we look at our boundary struggles, we are looking at patterns of power that are busy playing out. And it's power that we give away so that we can be liked, so we can be approved of, so we can be included. And there's a big difference between fitting in and belonging. And so many of us confuse this idea of fitting in and belonging. And when we give away our power, what we do is we go into, what do I have to do to fit in? And the difference between fitting in and belonging is really about when I fit in, I perform to what is expected of me from that environment. Whereas when I'm belonging, I am being true to who I am, and I trust that the people who are needed will come through. Another aspect of our boundary struggles is that how much power are we giving away just to avoid conflict? How much power are we giving away so we can feel safe? And what many of us don't realize about boundaries is that boundaries are actually quite gentle. Boundaries don't have to be this show of force, because when it becomes a show of force, we start to really almost create the biggest fears that we have around boundaries. And our biggest fears around boundaries is exclusion. It's being seen as being problematic. And so when we can start reclaiming our boundaries from a place of power, of love, of compassion, then we really start to rectify the ways in which we violate our own power. So I wanted to share with you, in the work that I do, I have 5 core archetypes, ways in which we give away our power. And these are the 5. There's the resistor. And the resistor is the person who just gets annoyed whenever there are demands being made of them. There's the superwoman or the superman. They just say yes to everything. They can do everything. And there's the caretaker. This person wants to look after everyone because they want to avoid people having difficult feelings. And then there's the chameleon. This is the person who really just changes who they are depending on the environment. And then there's the empowered pattern of boundaries, which is the exponential woman. And so what I really want to offer here is that there are different ways in which our boundary violating patterns or our self-betrayal patterns play out. And I want to offer that if you want to learn more about how to become clearer, how to understand your boundaries, I have a link. I think I've given it to Nyaki to share with you, to start looking at what is your pattern in which you are not necessarily operating from healthy power and some healthy boundaries, and how you are violating your own power patterns, so that you can start looking at what is it that you can do to start stepping into a more vibrant relationship with your own boundaries. In the end, I want to offer that boundaries are really and truly about setting you free. Boundaries are not about trapping you, and boundaries are not about you being difficult with other people. When we really and truly want to step into powerful boundaries, we need a relationship with ourselves. And so many of us want to fix our boundaries from a place of logic. What is critical is that our boundaries are an expression of our nervous system, of our relationship with ourselves, and about the level of permission we have with ourselves and the identity we have. And so that's pretty much what I have to share today, Nyaki. I'm not sure how to...
So good. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I wonder which one I am. But I don't know which one it is, but like I'm the one who like disengages. Like I'm just like, no, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do this. Is that a person who's just like,
it's the avoider?
That's the one. I'm just like, nah, let's go. It's okay. Let's go on holiday. We don't need to do this.
Yeah.
Let's do something else. Okay. I'm learning. This feels like a therapy session, Seth. I'm not gonna lie. A little bit uncomfortable, but a lot of eye-opening, I think. Especially because firstly you speak so gently and you just like when you're being shouted at, but it's calm and you're just like, I'm shouted. You can't your blood pressure can't even get raised because like the person is, you're being scolded, but you're being scolded gently. So you've got a very gentle parenting vibe to you. So amazing. But yeah, I think like what I'm taking from this, what I think the thing that stood out for me is that setting boundaries is not for someone else, it's for you. And it's so that you yourself can control your nervous system and the way that you show up in the world. Because you're right? It's like when you are irritated or agitated or in a place of defiance, like you're saying, or getting anxious or stressed out or tempered, then everything else in your life kind of falls apart. Now you're snappy to your husband and you don't understand why. Now you stop eating, or you're overeating, or you're sleeping too much or not sleeping enough. And for those of us who's like, for a lot of us, especially women, is that the trauma response usually manifests itself in medical conditions.
Yes.
So we have high blood pressure, we lose our hair, we've got thyroid issues. And so it's like life-threatening. It's like, if you don't do this thing, you could die.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not like, it's not to be like exaggerating or extreme or anything like that. But our boundaries really sit between ourselves and our sanity. And it's just, our boundaries are about what is happening at a very cellular level in our bodies. And if we don't nurture healthy boundaries, we quite literally forfeit our well-being. I also just like, one of the things that's occurring to me is like Coach Malebo last week spoke about, she spoke about confidence. And one of the things that she said was that confidence is about self-trust. And as much as confidence is about self-trust, boundaries are also about self-trust. These are both things that work hand in hand, and they are both acts of faith, because we can't control what is not in our control. But the irony is that so many of us approach boundaries and our personal power from the place of wanting to control that which is outside of our control, which it flips the script for us, because we literally put ourselves into a place of powerlessness. And so when we have a healthy approach to boundaries and a healthy approach to confidence, what really starts to become possible is that we can operate from a place of faith. And I share this very specifically because we're speaking to the Club She Is community. Because so much about business is about taking leaps of faith.
Yeah. And setting the boundary within yourself, right? So sometimes the boundary is the boundary that you have to create with yourself. So that's a big thing that my big thing this year is like rest. Because especially when you are building something, when you've got these dreams that you can work yourself, like no one's going to tell you to stop, right?
Yes.
No one's going to tell you that it's time to rest. No one is going to tell you no. And so being able to actually say like, no, wait, this is getting out of control, or like, no, I deserve to take a rest. My dreams it will work out somehow. And like you're saying, having that faith that, it's very interesting.
So the reason why I'm saying the acts of faith is because your boundaries are going to rub some people the wrong way. Have faith anyway. And then the other big one is, as you're saying, is rest. Now, as a business owner, one of the first things that you forfeit is rest. And yet, when you are really operating, and I hope I'm not using words that offend anyone, but when you want to operate from what I call the God zone, where the amazing ideas come to you, rest is your portal.
Yeah.
And so the boundaries that you have with yourself are so important, because you can't be your best self in the absence. So boundaries is not just about how you relate to other people. It's about how do you set yourself up so you can access the reservoirs of, deep magic inside of you. And start to do the things that really matter in your life, because so many of us we major in minors all the time, and we major in the things that we are not in control of, and that exhausts us.
Yeah. A new thing that I'm doing, a new boundary that I'm putting also, because this thing here, this little demon in our pocket that we carry, especially us new age millennials, this little thing, this is a boundary that I have decided to put as well. So I no longer sleep with my phone on my bedside table. I've removed the charger completely, because what happens is I wake up in the middle of the night, because obviously I'm stressed out, and because I'm stressed out, and I sit there for 4 hours just scrolling. So now I have to put my charger. I put my charger somewhere else. Like my charger sits in my desk.
Yeah.
So if I need my phone in the middle of the night, I physically have to get out of the bed.
Yes.
So that, like, the self boundary for me, I think, like, that's the
Yeah.
big resonant, because obviously, so I don't have kids, and so and I think I'm a very strict person in terms of personal boundaries. So I think, like, over the years, and I'm a firstborn daughter, so setting like physical boundaries, like people boundaries, is doesn't come as as I see other people, and I'm just like, why don't you just say no? So I get that other people do have the challenge with setting other like people boundaries, but I think internal boundaries for myself, especially, that is because it's like a self-control thing, but like it's challenging.
Yeah. And I mean, like, your phone is still external to you, and you can put it in another room. But our self-talk is also one of those self-internal boundaries. Because here's the thing, so many of us have got this vicious inner critic that runs the show. And we can blame the inner critic all we like. The truth is, it could be effortful, but the only person that can switch to a more compassionate internal voice is ourselves.
Yeah.
And we do it effortfully, right? And we can do it effortfully. It's not necessarily easy, but can we be devoted enough to put into the effort? Because the byproduct of a compassionate voice is very different. Your capacity for risk-taking is much greater. Your intuition opens up far more when you have a compassionate internal voice, because who wants to do daydreaming and fantasizing about amazing things when its first confrontation is going to be with this, its first encounter is going to be a confrontation with this inner critic, right? It's too difficult. And so I really love the fact that you're putting your phone at a distance, but for most of us, it's also, how do we speak to ourselves?
Yeah, I think Jordan Peterson, one of his rules of life is speak to yourself like you would someone you love, something like that. I think he says something like that. So think about yourself, or treat yourself like you treat a person that you love, because what you're saying is 100%. Malebo, you just joined the chat. Saf was quoting you just like five minutes ago. I hope you caught that, but she was talking about confidence. There's a comment here from Koba Smart Farms. I can relate with this so much. The procrastination, the passive aggression, my nervous system needing calmness. Thank you for this. Yeah, like it is. It's that thing of like, shh. And you get irritable, and you don't understand why, and it's just like, everything is just stop, make it stop.
Yeah. I don't know if we have time, but there's one thing I want to say. I'm going to go a bit off the reservation here. But if you know what is important for you, if you know what is important for you, what your priorities are, you are going to start knowing what is good for you and what is not good for you, right? Yeah. Too few of us actually know what our priorities are. And if we have a sense of what our priorities are, it will be in a pocket in our lives. But we don't typically sit with our life, and we don't typically sit in reflection about, am I operating from a place that feels good for me? Now, we don't have to be completely aligned lives, but does it feel good? One of the things that I've realized over time is that when I do what is good for me, not convenient, not easy, good, because very often good things are quite challenging. When I do what is good for me, even though it doesn't look that way in the short term, in the long term, it turns out to be good for everyone around me.
I love that.
And so one of the ways in which probably is an extension of how you're quoting Jordan Peterson is not only how do I speak to someone who I love, but how do I speak to life the version of myself I want to be? And how do I do it in a way that when that version of myself looks back, it feels proud? And so there's this quote that I like. I don't know whose quote it is, but it says, like, the two most important people in your life is your 8-year-old self and your 80-year-old self.
Yeah.
Right? And are you doing today something that is going to help you be the version of 80 that is going to be like, yes, I'm so happy you did that when you did that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, mine is my dear 40-year-old self. I'll obviously have to make it to the 80-year-old self now, because 40 is around the corner. But I love that so much, because what you're talking about, especially like as women in business, is that we all want to make money, right? Like money is always the goal is money, but money is not actually the goal, right? And to your point is that, yes, we all want to get money, but what are we doing? What is the money for, right? And the problem is that some of us get stuck and fixated on getting, like, on what, on making the money, and then we find ourselves being untrue to ourselves. We find ourselves doing weird things. We find ourselves in weird situations where we are not necessarily winning and scheming, but not operating from a values, from a higher self, from a this is what I should be doing. Because the chase is like, okay, I need to get to this number. I need to get to this number. Whereas to your point is like, what's the money for, right? Is it for, are we trying to get time freedom? Are we trying to get, are we trying to create memories? Are we trying to spend more time with our families? Like, what if the goal is quite clear? And I think that the point of like self-reflection and just sitting with like your ultimate desires, outside of, for example, making money or succeeding, kind of sets the tone then of, to what you're saying, being good in certain things, like what, operating in a sense of good. Because even if you don't get to the money goal, but you're able to be an amazing parent, like that is a place of good, right? Even if you don't get to the money goal, or your money goal, but you're able to travel and make really cool memories that may not be, you may not fly first class, business class, you may just fly economy and get there anyway. Seth, my goal, my life goal, I am so over flying economy. Like I got on the flight, I went to Thailand this year. I got on and I was like, this feels like torture. After 6 hours, I'm sitting on my butt. My leg went numb. I stood up and I got pins and needles. The person next to me is snoring. I was just like, this is hellish. So my big goal is make enough money to be able to fly first business class, because woo, yeah, I need that.
It's so important. What you're saying right now is like, you must know what is important to you.
Mm-hmm.
We spend so much of our lives reacting to what is being offered to us. And so we live our life from reaction, but not necessarily from creation. Mm-hmm. And so what boundaries are about is about allowing us to live our lives from creation. But creation has to do with, how good do I feel with myself? Can I give expression to what matters to me? And that's why I come back to the quote, we sin when we get our lives out of order. And knowing what the money is for. Because here's the irony. The irony is sometimes it's easier to get to the thing that the money is for than the money itself. And then the money comes. It's such a strange thing. And that is why this idea of being in deep, deep, deep connection with ourselves is so important. But we live in a world that will do anything and everything to keep us distracted from ourselves. And, there are so many ways in which we can have what we want, and money is just one of the ways. And so I want to share, a couple of years ago, I think it was 2016, I had a list of 7 countries I wanted to go to. And I didn't have a reference to first class and any of that. I just wanted to go to these 7 countries. I just started my business. I didn't have money. Here's the irony. I wasn't invited to run a project for a corporate. And guess where the projects were deployed to? And guess how I traveled? And guess how I stayed? Right?
Seth, I want that life.
But it's the clarity.
Yeah.
And I have so many examples of these stories, because I sit and I work on what is clear for me. And when I become clear about, so this is one of the things that we didn't talk about. Boundaries is about, what do I say no to? Right? What do I say no to? Because once I become clear about this, I have to create a life in which this can flourish and not be preoccupied with all the small inyana things that are taking up my time and my energy. It's become really devoted to that, because that is what's good for you, and what's good for you is good for everybody.
Absolute fire. So good. So much stems from self-trust. You're so right, Kopano. Guys, I'm gonna call it because I think Seth has said more than we need to, because she's left us with homework to go and think about our thoughts. I hate doing thinking work. Why would you do this to us? Now I must think about my life choices. But I
because nobody else can think for you, Nyaki.
That is true. That is true. Not ChatGPT, not Gemini, not your husband, no friend, no mom. So yeah, really, really appreciate this conversation, Seth. I think it was really insightful and informative. And a lot to think about, but also a lot to action, right? Because what I appreciate about this conversation is, yes, you've given us to think about, but there is some sort of homework. And if you're not sure about what the homework is, we will be sending a link towards a link via email at the end of this. I'm going to post it in the group as well, which gives you tell me what it is, Seth. It's the quiz, the assessment, the boundary assessment. That you can take to see where you are with your boundaries, like where you are in terms of like what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. I've just dropped it in the chat below, but we will send it later as well in the emails. And take the quiz and find out how you fare. And then if you do take the quiz and you get your result, when you get your results, just screen grab or comment in the Club She Is community. Please tag Saf or email her, just like let her know how it was. And if you want to continue to have the conversation with her, please reach out to her. She is part of the community, and so all her details will be there. Thank you guys again for joining us for Lunch and Learn. We will see you again next week, like we see you every Friday at 1:00. We will be having another speaker joining us, talking to us about another topic, because I think that's the theme of the year, that we're going to be having a lot more speakers, just getting the women in the club to share their experiences, to share their life learnings and their businesses with us, so that we can grow, we can learn, and we can support them. Thank you again, guys. Appreciate you. Thank you so much, Saf. See you.
Nyaki, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure. Bye, guys.